478s a pair. But this ride will be one, unfortunately, he'll never forget for some very different reasons. David, as you know, I was at the far end of the racetrack, and I could hear Corey Mack upside down in that car screaming in pain. It was just brutal.
The instant replay showed us exactly what happened. The wing collapsed on Corey Mack's car. It went out of control, turned over, crossed over the track, slammed into the opposite lane guard wall. The fire funneled down the body, causing serious burns to Corey Mack's hands.
Well, it caused Corey Mack to miss quite a few races during his recuperation period, but he did rejoin the 93 Tour, and by the end of the season, he was looking good. Full use of his hands, the scar is barely noticeable, and someday they'll all go away.
The Top Fuel final at Rockingham in the Winston Invitational found Mike Dunn, second generation, the son of Jim Dunn, at the wheel of the La Victoria Salsa car, owned and tuned by Darrell Gwynn. His competition, a rising young star in the sport, again a second-generation racer, Scott Coletta, the son of Connie Coletta, the bankroll behind the American International Airways car.
It was at Rockingham we first fully realized the impact of Dick LaHaye, the crew chief for Scott Coletta. Wheels in the air off the mark. Scott Coletta wins the Winston Cash at 5:03.
You guys really worked hard for this one. We put 4 motors in it all weekend, and we hurt that one too, but it's a great feeling.
And a pretty good race, a 5:03 to a 5:07, but you were razor sharp up the line.
Yeah, I would have liked to have been a little better. Everybody tries to be as good as possible, but, you know, I got the win light, so I guess that's all that matters.
Right after Rockingham, the pressures began to build once again in the NHRA Winston Championship Drag Racing Trail as we move to the Fram Southern Nationals at Atlanta, Georgia.
And here at the 5th race of the season, one guy having a peachy time in Georgia was Chuck Etchels. He had a new crew chief, the highly vaunted Tim Richards, qualified number 1 at a 5:09 and earned the right to face off with John Force in the Nobody Beat the Whiz car. That's Etchels.
As they came to the championship round, Force had the lane choice, nearly 0.2 of a second quicker in the semifinals, but Force was the last to stage. Etchels was in, sitting and waiting before Force ever made it to the second light. It didn't matter, though. Force got to the finish line first.
It was great. There was a whole lot of excitement. Went up on there. Etchels just went in. I thought, oh, he's making a power play here, but it was really neat. And always in the finals, take a final. The car ran good, but I want to take him in here just say hi to my mom. I never do. Mom, I love you. I'm taking you to Tulsa this week.
Dave McClelland.
Steve John won that one on a hole shot, a 5:30 to a quicker 5:28, but losing for Etchels. Force, Hoffman, Pedregon, Etchels, and Worsham, the top 5 in the Winston chase after Atlanta.
In Top Fuel round number 1, we got a real treat. It was Danielle DePorter in the blue car near lane, the Paul Smith car, and Pat Austin. Watch the Austin car. Well, watch Danielle, but she came back down out of the wheel stand. Austin, wow, 303 miles an hour, fastest ever.
Wow, hey. Boy, the Syntec family ought to be happy today. I mean, with all the help, those Dynamax and Red Wing is just proud to be part of that deal. And to run that quick with all the guys we got now, I mean, we got a real good group of guys over there. I just very happy for them. My dad and Frank Bradley, everybody, way to go. And we're going on to the next round.
Wow. Let me add my own. Wow. 3:03, that was the fastest speed ever recorded by a Top Fuel dragster. Also, Top Fuel held a great attraction in Atlanta. It marked the very first appearance in a dragster by John Andretti. The fabled Andretti family now adding drag racing to its roster of race cars. Jack Clark was the car owner of the Taco Bell Express, driven by Andretti. It was in round number 1 that he faced off against the reigning Winston champ, Joe Amato.
2 Pennsylvanians, one a rookie in this sport, one a 5-time Winston champion, and the Rook pulled it off. Andretti 5 flat to Amato's 5:09. Round number 2. Once again, we see John Andretti, this time in the near lane against Tommy Johnson Jr.
And once again, John Andretti had not only a good reaction time, but he had the performance. That was the scene that Tommy Johnson Jr. saw as John Andretti advanced to the semifinals, where his competition would be Mike Dunn. This time, Dunn was in the lane nearest the camera, Andretti and Clark's car in the far lane.
But by this point, Andretti was thinking, hey, this drag racing is a piece of pizza. But it's not. The salsa car of Mike Dunn got him.
I'm really pleased. Taco Bell, Jack Clark, car just ran wonderful. The guys did a great job. You know, it's dry every time it comes down here, and you know, I can't ask for anything more. You know, obviously we'd love to be in the finals, but you know, it just gets tougher after every round.
I hope you had as much fun doing it as we did watching.
Well, I had a ball doing it. I wish I was around one more time.
Sure didn't take John Andretti long to catch on how to perform in drag race interviews with Steve. The finals, Eddie Hill in the Pennzoil Nuclear Banana. A final check of the engine by crew chief Fuzzy Carter. His competition, the guy that whipped John Andretti, Mike Dunn.
Mike Dunn had a perfect light, but not a perfect clutch. Lost the traction. He had to shut it down. Eddie won it at a 487.
Oh, it feels so good. And we're first in the points now and everything. Set a track record here. Loyalty of the meet. The Pennzoil team did an outstanding job today. Fuzz and the guys, wonderful.
This was the first time that Eddie Hill climbed to the top of the ladder in the Winston points chase. McCulloch was second, followed by Bernstein, Amato, and Mike Dunn's final round finish put him number 5.
Well, all repaired from the Phoenix crash was Kurt Johnson in the Final Four of Pro Stock. He was up against Scott Jeffrey on the Dodge. His dad Warren was hoping Kurt could knock that Dodge out. A terrific side-by-side duel, and it was Kurt Johnson at a 720. The other half of the semifinals found Warren Johnson, WJ, up against Frank Iaconio. Iaconio having his best performance in some time, but it wasn't enough. Warren Johnson at a 7-17 made the final round against his own kid.
Well, there's 2 ways to attack any problem: youth and enthusiasm, or age and deception.
Maybe a little treachery.
Whatever it takes to win this thing.
A whole bunch of J's were on the starting line in Atlanta. KJ was in the near lane. WJ was in the far lane. On paper, it was all the GM Performance Parts Oldsmobile. But Kurt Johnson at the wheel of the Gary Chameri Cutlass gave him all he could handle. Warren Johnson won it at a 7-17.
You child abuser, you.
Who had the better reaction time?
You did.
Perfect. I was worried about that. There may be some truth in what he's saying.
Well, that was an outstanding race. We congratulate the whole family.
Thank you very much, Steve.
Get some rest, Warren Johnson. Dave?
You could hear it in his voice. Even the flu could not keep Warren Johnson from the winner's circle in the lead in the points chase, followed by Morgan, KJ, Mark Powick, and Scott Jeffrey on.
And it was time for the NHRA Winston Tour to move on to Memphis, Tennessee, the home of the Blues and the Goodies Mid-South Nationals, presented by TNN here at Memphis Motorsports Park. And in Pro Stock round number 2, this was wonderful. It was Warren Johnson over the far side, Bob Glidden over here. The 2 old warriors, they hate each other. Everybody knows that. And they had a staging battle supreme.
I guarantee you they did not gain any favor in either one's eyes as they sat there and sat there and sat there until eventually they staged, and
Bob Glidden cut almost a perfect light.
more than enough to beat Warren Johnson as the Gliddens celebrated.
Little fun on the starting line there.
Well, you know, the guy's got us, you know, he's got a hold on us, you know, and you've got to do everything you can do. I mean, we're just out here struggling to make a round, and to beat Warren, you know, we feel pretty good right now.
Steve, that was the 10-time Winston champion talking about struggling, but he at least admitted that they were playing a few games up there on the line.
That's right. The final round, Scott Jeffrey on. You were on board with him in the Dodge. He was wondering, would Glidden play that same kind of a trick? He admitted it was a trick. No, he did not. You can only be burned down if you let yourself be burned down. If you stage, the other guy's got to stage. And that's the way Jeffrey on played the game. Moved the handles every time that little red light came on. And it was Scott Jeffrey on winning his first ever NHRA national event, a 7:21 to a 7:23. And it was time for a far-end celebration. And Bob Glidden is part of it. Scott, when you're sick as a dog, there's no better medicine for a race car driver than his first ever big win.
Sure isn't. You know, I just can't wait to bring that trophy home to my mom, dad, Amy, everybody at home in Mahwah, New Jersey. These guys from Wayne County, they've been working so hard. They've stuck with me behind everything I've done. They've made me more consistent. The car's more consistent. Mopar is a sponsor. Dodge is a car. Am I happy?
Scott Jeffrey on, like Warren Johnson the race before, sick with the flu, but winning in pro stock.
On a picturesque burnout like this in qualifying, you appreciate the throttle control of Cruz Pedregon, and that's what Mike Green, his crew chief on the left, and Lee Beard, crew chief on the McDonald Stop fuel car, were hoping for going up against Whit Bazemore. This was a tricky track. It took a good driver to get down it.
And what was incredible was Bazemore's appearance after all the problems he had had earlier in the season, and he prevailed here, upsetting Cruz Pedregon.